What is going to happen with his skipper Declan Rice? Is he going to be out there at the end of this season? It would seem he would be. This was Moisey on Declan.
Undoubtedly, Declan's going to be a top player, and undoubtedly he'll be a British transfer record if ever leaves West Ham and more. When you're looking at what you buy for 85 or 90 nowadays, so I hope he sees his time here. But look, there's a lot of talk about it, and just be important when you see what's gone about for the prices. I think Dec will be blowing that out the water, that's for sure, when it comes around.
So Martin, let's talk about Declan Rice. Of course, still in a West Ham shirt and still leading by example, doing his all on the pitch. Of that there is no doubt. Is our understanding, what would it take for a successful, or a bid to be deemed successful come the end of the season in the next window? Is our understanding 120 million plus add-ons will get him? 120 million pounds plus add-ons would secure you Declan Rice. We understand that Manchester United last summer bid 100 million and didn't get him. Chelsea, Arsenal and United still in the frame, it's understood, still giving chase. But what would it take? That's what it would take. 120 million plus add-ons. What do you think of that, Martin? Do you think someone will go to that figure?
Well, let's see what happens. I don't think so, Jim. Although the way that prices are going right now, who can really predict that? They offered him, I think, West Ham an 8-year deal. We could get that if he went to Chelsea. Maybe they should offer him a lifetime deal to try to keep him there. But one assumes that he'll move on one day. But I think the growth of the player has been quite fantastic, really. He struck me at the beginning as being like a central defender playing in midfield, but he doesn't look like that anymore. He now looks really comfortable in possession, really happy feet. There was a suggestion he didn't receive the ball on his back foot enough. His body shape, Jim, when he receives the ball, you just let it run across onto the back foot, wasn't really doing that, and then wouldn't go forward enough. But now that game is coming in. He plays more when he receives it. He can run with the ball. He has really good pace. He has everything. And his character, his personality, he's a real character. Looks like he's easy to get along, fights for his mates, and is really a West Ham man. So that would be a huge loss for that football club, Jim. And with him in the team, they're still struggling now, West Ham, just above the foot of the table. So he won't be going anytime soon, but his development has been astonishing.
Would he fit in at Arsenal, do you think, Martin?
Yeah, I think he's a player that would improve the group. I mean, Partey now is coming into some really good form, you have to say. But if he's had another injury or there's issues, he brings... Xhaka plays a different type of role now where he bursts forward. That's something that Rice could do. It'd be interesting to see what happens, Jim, whether or not he can stay at his club in the same way that Harry Kane has stayed at Spurs. Why can't Declan Rice stay at West Ham? That would be the dream for the West Ham fans.
When you look at it, Simon, I mean, we know the figures these days are being that are being bandied about are pretty crazy. Grealish going for 100 million.
Yeah.
Off he went from Villa to Manchester City. We saw what happened with Enzo Fernandez last week. 120 million plus add-ons. Someone going to go to that, do you think? And clinch the deal, because that's what West Ham want.
Well, those transactions were triggered by release clauses that had established values in them. The value that Declan Rice has is the beauty in the eye of the beholder. And what Declan Rice is prepared to do if people don't meet the expectation that West Ham have. Because previously he hasn't been prepared to do anything, and that's right and proper because he's got a contract. He shouldn't be agitating for a move, and if his club tells him he can't move, that's the end of the discussion. But the release clause situation on these other players has triggered the outcomes. In this situation, it'll be market forces that dictate. And I'm not in the camp that Declan Rice is worth 120 million quid. He's worth 120 million quid to West Ham because that's what West Ham would like to get. And maybe, not to contradict myself in this ridiculous, absurd marketplace that's been Chelsea inflated, that you can get those sort of numbers. But in real terms, when you're looking at world-class footballers, Declan Rice is a very good player, playing in a rather average side that will go on to greater heights playing in a far better one. And with that in mind, do you pay that kind of money? Now, the bottom line is that if no one wants to, I mean, if they're going to play hide and seek with one another, and Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United are going to get into a competitive tension, then you might get that price. But if you don't, and they all want to go, right, we'll all pay 80 million quid.
Was that the price quoted to Chelsea? And the embarrassment of a player that fell out of their youth system?
Well, they're used to that, aren't they? They've had that many times over.
Well, yeah, but 120 million? To go and get
they just done it with Lukaku, haven't they?
The thing is, though, Simon, what are you getting? He's 24.
Yeah.
He never misses a game.
Fantastic.
Hugely consistent. English.
So we pay for consistency at 120 million quid, do we? He's a good player, but English has got bugger all to do with it. I mean, the bottom line is we pay a premium for English players.
Well,
sometimes.
we want the core players, English players in the group, without doubt. And
Where? In what group? In the winning group with the England
team? If
team?
you look back at the teams that have won the Premier Leagues traditionally, there's always been that sprinkling of English players, isn't there? That have brought something to the group. So I think it's an important ingredient that they'll all look to do. If you look at the John Terrys at Chelsea.
Yeah, you're talking about central defenders now. We're talking about central midfield.
No, we're just talking about English players. We're talking about English players that need to be a part of teams for them to
granted,
be. I
absolutely.
I think every team, any foreign manager comes in.
What's that got to do with? Because there is always an argument that there's inflation. We have this perspective of our own players that we end up paying a premium for buying English players. Now that argument might be being slightly dismantled now because we're paying premiums for everyone everywhere, right? Depending upon the club who goes in for them. But those premiums are being determined by the foresight of clubs putting release clauses on there that they think they're never going to get, and then subsequently up comes some Herbert that's prepared to pay it. Now, in this instance, they don't have a release clause on Declan Rice, so the market forces will determine. And how many transactions get done that way? I mean, okay, Gareth Bale was one of the examples of that, and a few others that we can point to. I would be very surprised.
He's got 2 years left of his contract.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jude Bellingham goes for that.
If he's got 2 years to go, Simon, 1 second, Jim, let me ask some questions here. So let me just step in for you for a change. You've not even looked at me since I came in the studio this morning.
That's not surprising, is it?
Show me the love.
Yeah, so what would you
Where's
do?
the love,
How long would you leave it? There's 2 years to go, I believe, of his contract.
If you were the club?
If you're the club, you're a West Ham owner now.
They got two in an option, they West Ham.
Well, so how long do you leave it before you say, okay, let's let this go? And how long does the player think, well, okay, he's just running down his contract? Would you sell him now, or would you wait?
How long do you leave what? Until someone comes and bid for your player?
How long do you want left on his contract?
Your questions are going well, Martin.
Well, they asked for they were offered £100 million last year, so the answer was not last year. So if they're this year and the circumstances are slightly different, and they view that the situation is becoming slightly more full of jeopardy because they're in that situation.
So in the next 12 months, they have to sell him. Otherwise, that's just dropping like a stone, his valuation.
Well, I think they've got another option for another year after that, haven't they?
It's still going to drop, though, isn't it?
Well, yes. It doesn't get stronger the smaller your contract gets, but it depends against what you're selling him against what you lose in achievement terms. If you go and lose
for West Ham.
£20-30 million a year for lack of achievement.
Simon, if what I'm led to believe is true, and I've no reason to doubt it, Manchester United bid and were unsuccessful with $100 million in the summer. He's a never present with West Ham. His form doesn't dip. 120 million plus add-ons. I'm sure.
Simon, he just said he'd sell him. So when would you sell him? Because they're only just above the foot of the bottom.
I'd sell him in the summer. I wouldn't sell him now because I couldn't sell him now, could I? Because the window's closed. That's why I'm not looking at you, because I can't understand what you're saying.
So you're going to let him go in the summer?
I'm not going to let him go. I'm going to try and engineer a situation that suits me the best. And if the player wants to stay, I'm not going to say, no, you've got to go.
Which is West Ham exactly what they're doing.
What?
Well, they're waiting to do a deal which suits them
and that's
best.
Fine. Good.
Quite right.
Well, last year 100 million didn't suit them for the timing of it. Now, if
I thought you were suggesting they're going to sell him in the summer.
If they get offered
100 million,
okay. So when, I would imagine that Dortmund wanted to get 110 million quid for Jadon Sancho. What did they end up with? 73 million quid, because circumstances changed and situations changed.
Which one of those two players would you play most for? When you look at the
Declan Rice. Declan Rice, of course, because I don't rate Jadon Sancho. But the point is this: is that the market changes. Just because you got 100 million last year doesn't mean that you'll get it this year. And I know what you're saying, which is absolutely that your sources are saying we were offered £100 million Man United. Who would have wanted to join Man United last year?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.